Okay. I'm going to come up with a cooler name for this law, but right now it's the Violent Offenses Against Law Enforcement Act. S2124. The nature of the bill is as follows. For certain intense and violent crimes, I would like to drastically increase the punishments, but also introduce a selective punishment process for the defendants. You there?
Go on.
Okay. Generally, the concept is this, and I'll just give an example of a kind of crime and then the crux of it. If someone is caught for Grand Theft Auto, they're generally processed, they're sent for a few months, and there's nothing violent going on. I mean, listen, they stole a car, they're going to be sent up for a few months. It's, I would say something like that is less severe, or like breaking and entering. Some less severe, even some, felonious crimes, if they're less severe, if they're non-violent, if guns aren't involved, if explosives aren't involved, I categorize those in sort of that lower level. On the other hand, we have what, Speedy is facing, or what some people face, where it's, the nines. It's drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, things that typically are going to end up in court cases where, if they're sentenced, it's for, several years. There is this sort of crime that I see occur a lot that kind of plagues the police force, and happens very frequently. But let's say someone gets in a traffic stop, and then that traffic stop ends in multiple tuner cars being pulled out, a bunch of people shooting Leos, huge shootout, grenades are thrown, rocket launchers all over a traffic stop, right? Or even just in any event, right, of some sort of, I think you even tried to pass a law sort of for these, like, they're not quite terroristic activities, but, so you don't have to prove the political intent. I'm basically not trying to redefine the laws. So your law would still hold here. I'm trying to redefine the sentencing where...
Well, my law didn't work.
Oh, well, sucks. Use of class 2s, class 3s, and especially explosives. I want to drastically increase the times, fines, and a possible tertiary punishment. Basically, if you get caught, let's say you grenaded some cops. Say you threw a grenade at some cops, okay? Right now, I'm pretty sure you could throw a grenade and almost kill 3 cops, and you'll end up in jail for 60 months. Your fine's going to be, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000. It's really not that substantial. In this world, I want your time to be 1 year, if not 2 years. And then the difference is this, though. I want you to be able to drastically reduce the time, but incredibly increase the fine. So you can pay for that time to be, I don't know, back to that sort of minimum that we talked about, something like 40 months, 50 months, 60 months. But to do that, you will have to pay the state basically damages for what you did. And when I say damages, I mean, I'm talking $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. Alternatively, I would like to see this program available, but some sort of, I know there are people working on a parole program, but some sort of parole or volunteer program where, as an alternative punishment to either of those, you could go and do volunteer EMS work, volunteer recycling work, etc. The crux of it is this. If you're really fucking rich and you want to pay to not spend as much time in prison, you can pay to not spend as much time in prison, but we're going to make your fucking pockets hurt. If you don't have the pockets to do this, you're going to spend the time. If there's an opportunity for you to do something else that, can help the state, whether it be doing recycling, doing volunteer EMS, then that is another option available to you. It's none of this is that you pick one and you don't get anything else, right? Obviously, if you pick the incredible fine, you're still gonna have to do some time. If you pick the crazy amount of time, you're still gonna have some degree of financial punishment as well. Same even for the volunteer EMS stuff. What do you think in general?
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
First, what is the goal of this change?
To make more money for my state account.
Okay.
It's to reduce the economy in NoPixel. I have many goals with this. They're actually very hard to articulate.
So I'll tell you right away, you're going to run into some problems. Speaking from experience. Number one, it's hard enough to staff EMS as it is. And if you use their department as a punishment, I don't know. It's a dangerous road to go down because, for example, I thought I was, encouraging people to do things they might not otherwise do. One time the HOA shot cops and then skipped medical. So part of their sentence was to go do volunteer EMS. And I literally had to have like an hour-long conversation about how EMS isn't a punishment and it makes a mockery of their department and blah, blah, blah. So just be warned, if you go down that road, you're probably going to have that conversation. In terms of this whole, sanitation thing, waste removal, I brought that up as a, part of like the advanced parole program. And I think what you're going to find is that instead of just cleaning up the city, people are just going to, grind sanitation. I
guess here's what I'm asking. And maybe instead of just throwing this legislation out there, I should ask, what would you have me do?
I'll be honest with you. I wanted to put in something like diet terrorism is what I was calling it, where it would sort of bridge the gap between like, Hell Week and like shooting cops because you're trying to get away from a bank. The problem is that it gets really complicated because, for example, when you write the law or the legislation, right, you're talking about how to differentiate between normal actions and what would be called diet terrorism. So here's an issue. If the differentiation between normal crimes like getting away and diet terrorism is the underlying felony, I was calling it. So for example, if you're like running from a bank robbery, if you're doing a weed run, you get pulled over for being in a flagged car. If you're, doing a meth run, an armored car, whatever it may be, right?
This is
you shoot cops.
The idea is that did what you do, you shooting the cops or being violent against the cops, was it for a warranted reason of a high felonious crime?
Right, but here's the problem. If you put that in there, right, and you say that's when that happens, you're inherently violating someone's rights. Because think of it this way. If they don't say anything about why they're doing it, and the cops have no idea why they're getting shot, and then the cops push the charge that activates your legislation and says this is wanton, and the term I use is like wanton and extreme violence, without an underlying felonious motivation. And let's say you get someone down in the cells, let's say Speedy, for example. And let's say the allegation is that he's doing Hell Week and he went and grenaded a bunch of cops. He has to then basically say, no, I was an accomplice to that meth run. That's why I grenaded the cop, which violates his right against self-incrimination.
Yeah. So to be clear, that's why I'm not pushing for a new law. I'm pushing for, regardless of whether it was because you were on a meth run or because you just wanted to shoot cops because you're a psychopath, I'm pushing these blanket charges.
Above and beyond what we recently did?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm basically saying I want to 5x the severity of punishment for violent crimes. Especially
so what
as they
we did
relate to
recently was
explosives.
we scaled everything by between 1.1 and 2x depending on what it was. Things like explosives, shooting cops, etc. got 2x'd. The rest were somewhere in between depending on severity.
I'll be frank with
So
you.
you want to 5x that again?
Yes, I just heard what that is, and I think it's laughable.
So shooting a cop right now is $5,000.
That's, yeah, I mean,
okay, but you have to look at things
Crane,
in terms of events.
With all due respect, I signed into my work here as the mayor of this city, and I earn like $15,000 a day. That means,
right, okay, but
that means
you
my
have to
job
look at
as
things
mayor.
as an event.
That means my
not
job
as in
is
charge. Are you understanding what I'm getting at? So let me put it into perspective better. Let's look at not an individual charge of shooting a cop, but let's look at an event where someone shoots cops, right? So let me just look up meth run. So I'm going in the MDW. I'm searching for
in fact,
meth run.
I would like you to read off several of the meth run charges on people who are caught on them, and I'd like to see what they are.
Okay, so Juan Carlos Hernandez had criminal possession of firearm class 1, criminal possession of firearm class 2, 8 times accomplice attempted murder of a government employee, accomplice felony possession intent to distribute. He got 230 months, 460 months parole, $73,350 fine. So, for example, that's without anything else. So, no driving charges, no nothing. They couldn't prove anything except for that he was part of a group that shot cops and he had guns on him. Or that's all they charged him with, and the accomplice to felony possession intent to distribute.
How do I look at these? Oh, I can't.
You don't have that ability. Nope. So let me put it this way.
Okay, well that's what.
Let's say we took your example. Let's take your example.
I want to know. I know Lang Buddha's.
If we 5x,
I want to know what Lang Buddha's charges are, and I want to know what Chain Gang's charges were.
Okay, so just bear with me for this one, then we'll get to that. If I do what you're saying and I 5x that, right, and each attempted murder of a government employee is $25,000, then we're looking at that incident, that meth run, costing Flippy $250,000.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds great. The difference is this. At meth run, what I would want is, okay, this is actually great if we go off my 5x principle. So now what would be 5x his time?
1,000 months.
Yeah. So well, let's just, for 1,000 months, let's just call that 1 year. Okay. So then Flippy is given this choice: 1 year and 50,000, something like this, either 1 year and $50,000 or 60 months and $250,000. Those are his two choices. And additionally, I do want to build in a system where the third option being some form of community service, and then the cost is 50,000 and 60 months.
I think you have way too much faith in the PD.